Hey everybody, Elijah Yasi, Underground Catholicism. I got Pawel Glowacki. Brother Pawel is an expert in the topic of the papacy, but I will let Brother Pawel here introduce himself and tell us a little bit about your background and yourself and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so thank you for invitation, Elijah, for your show. My name is Pawel Glowacki. I am PhD student in patrology at the Catholic University of Lublin in Poland, of John Paul II. I'm specializing in papal primacy in the first millennium, understanding of the role of the Bishop of Rome and the Church of Rome in the East and in the West. Recently, 2 weeks ago, I wrote. There was a premiere of my monograph titled "From Peter to the Pope: The Face of Papal Authority in the First Millennium." This book was written in Polish, so there is no English translation. And what is important to tell also that the foreword to my book and to my research conclusion wrote Emeritus Prefect of the Congregation of Faith, Cardinal Gerhard Ludwig Mühle. And so in a nutshell, this is my topic of my research. And maybe I could also say that I had previously two debates also on the topic of the papal primacy with Father Patrick Ramsey, 3 hours debate, understanding of the Easter Church, how it looks at the authority of the Bishop of Rome, and with the other Paul Protestant apologists, how the papacy has supremacy by divine right up to the 5th century. So you can look these debates and watch it. It's good stuff.
I don't think I knew that you debated the other Paul. I've watched your other debate with Father Ramsey, but not. I got to go back to watch because I'm debating him in about a month.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Great.
So
I will be praying for you.
thank you, brother. So, and I watched your video recently that you did. Tell us a little bit about that video, and what you talked about. And what was it? It was like some sort of something with your university, was it?
Yeah, about the conference on the Pope Celestine. Yeah,
Yeah.
so 2 weeks ago, there was international conference, a patristic conference, organized by my university, so the Catholic University of Lublin, about the synodality in the early church. Synodality, authority of the Bishop of Rome, how collegiality, how the church looks at these things. It was 3 days of conference, and there was a lot of one of the best scholars in the world. There was Hubertus Drobner. He has a speech. He's from his patrology book. In the Augustinum at Rome, they are learning the patrology. He's one of the best scholars in the world, one of the best patrologists. Like there was Jeffrey Dunn, also great scholar. He wrote a good monograph on the Cyprian of Carthage and the understanding of the primacy of in his thought, and a lot of other scholars from Europe, from USA, and from all the world. And I have also, at the end of this conference, 3 days conference, I was the last speaker, and I had the lecture about understanding of the synodality and primacy in the thought of the Pope Celestine I on the background of the Nestorian controversy at the Council of Ephesus. So I had a speech about it.
I know it was a wonderful talk that you gave. I
Oh,
think
thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, someone said here, and I agree with this. Powell's a hidden gem on the papacy. You're underrated, man. People don't know about you. I think, I think you're doing good work, and I'll tell you why I think you're doing good work. I think the modern day scholarship is so heavily liberal that you don't. It's refreshing to hear someone who is in this field who believes that Rome had the primacy in the first millennium and shows that. Whereas the more liberal scholarship, it's almost like they want to throw all the evidence under the rug for the sake of ecumenacy and ecumenacy and ecumenical dialogue. It's almost like we're just gonna plug our ears and blindfold ourselves with all the evidence that's out there, and we're gonna put forward this idea that Rome never claimed this authority, in the first millennium, that the East never accepted this authority, all because authority is offensive to people. It's offensive, right? And so this is it's kind of dishonest. Is that what your experience with scholarship, modern day scholarship? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And there is, I'm agree with you 100%. This is very accurate description of the current scholarship in this field. And also I presented in my monograph, I showed that most of the scholars nowadays, and I'm talking also about the Catholic scholars, like in my monograph, I wrote at the beginning, that they had very minimalistic concept of the papacy in the first millennium. Very minimalistic, but in what I mean by minimalistic, not what you said, in your videos, but only this, that they looked at Rome, that Rome have all primacy of honor, primatus honoris. The great example is of the Chieti document. Chieti document in 2016, there was ecumenical dialogue between Eastern Orthodox scholars and Catholic scholars. And in the paragraph 15 to 19, they agree on some things. They agree 4 things. Like, first of all, from the 4th to 7th century, Bishop of Rome has only primacy of honor. It was primatus honoris. It was only prima sedes. Secondly, the authority of the Bishop of Rome was not by divine right, that the Eastern Church does not see authority of Bishop of Rome de jure divina. Thirdly, the Bishop of Rome is not, we would say, heir or special successor of Peter in the Eastern thought. This is Chieti document are saying that no, he's a successor more Peter and Paul. It's not, this was Western Latin concept that he's special successor of Peter. And they also said that the Bishop of Rome does not have canonical authority, we could say the primacy of jurisdiction in the Eastern churches. And the East does not look at Rome as higher authority, because they said in the Chieti document that the Eastern Church fathers appealed everywhere, not only to Rome but to Constantinople, to Aquilera. So this was it shows only the communion of the churches, brotherhood. And even I was talking with Hubertus Drobner also. I had a private discussion, best scholar, and and he and other scholars which I talked in patristic field and in the studies on the papal primacy. They're saying, that the Bishop of Rome has some moral authority, but not jurisdiction, very minimalistic concept. And I have my hypothesis why this is the case, why they are saying this. And I would just say 2-3 things. First of all, because in the 20th century, by Dwornik and Congar and other scholars, there was this idea of 2 ecclesiologies. One in the Eastern Church, one in the Western Church. And they are saying that in the Eastern Church, there was this ecclesiology of Christian Hellenism by, especially Eusebius of Caesarea and others, that the emperor was, he was the lord of the church. He has this jurisdiction, he was the authority. So we have the emperor and the collegiality. And in the Western ecclesiology, there was in the 4th and 5th century and later, the West had the Pope who has the authority. So we have the Pope in the West, and this was this papal ecclesiology, which was not shared by all bishops in the West, and it was also the minimalistic, the same scholars are saying. And in the East, we have totally different ecclesiology, rejecting the authority of the Bishop of Rome, looking at him as primatus honoris, primacy of honor he had only. So when we have this concept, a priori, we would say, we have 2 totally different ecclesiologies. So when you read the data, when you read patristic texts from the East, you will always, try to put square into this concept of totally different Eastern ecclesiology. So this is the first reason. Second reason is ecumenical dialogue. unfortunately, even if I'm very ecumenist. And I think this is very important to be ecumenical, because the Catholic Church is the ecumenical. But the bad thing of the ecumenism is that, and I talked with scholars and they told me, to my face, that, oh, Paul, if you say that East accept papal authority, this is not ecumenical, because then, we don't have Eastern ecclesiology in the first millennium, totally different from the Western ecclesiology. And now we should, try to create some new ecclesiology, taking something from East, something from West, and create something new. And if you are saying, as I said, that the East accepted papal authority and has very similar concept like the Western Church, so the East should come back, and the East rejected the papal authority, which should accept. So this is traditional ecclesiology. So we shouldn't create something new. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there
you
is
can't
much more.
you can't tell somebody that they're wrong these days. It's
Yes,
offensive.
yes, because it's offensive. Even if when I had this lecture yesterday, before this lecture, I talked with best scholars. I would say one of the best in the world, in the Europe, and everybody, like not only Catholics, told me that the papal primacy was not even in the first 5 centuries. It was just accidental. It was honorific. And I would say, oh, no, 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 no. You will see tomorrow. I show you are wrong. And tomorrow I had very hot speech. And after this, a lot of people come to me and say, congratulations. I do not know about it. I want to read your article. I would say, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. That's why we need more people like you, brother, because you're doing work that a lot of people have neglected, like you said, for dishonest reasons. If I'm being honest about this, it's just dishonest to ignore the evidence. You mentioned earlier, the Pope. Does he have divine? Is it a divine institution? Is the papacy a divine institution started by Christ? And it seems like a lot of these people would say no. And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy, but when I read the fathers, when I read the ecumenical councils, it's all over the place. And if they're not to be trusted in something like this, saying, yeah, the papacy, the Bishop of Rome's office is a divine institution. This is a big deal. Is it part of the gospel or not? That's what divine institution is. Was it made up? Was it because it's a Roman Empire? Is it because of Peter and Paul dying there? What's the reason why Rome is esteemed in the first millennium? If you can touch up on that a little bit.
yeah, of course, no problem. So when you read some, and you can see it in some great books of the Eastern Orthodox scholars or Protestant scholars, they are trying to say that, Rome, after some period of time, because of the imperial city, this was imperial city, so then it has some primacy, or because the Rome has tombs of Saint Peter and Paul, so this is dual apostolicity. So there is some authority, this honorific authority, or because of the political, environment, when in the 5th century, the Western Church, the Western Empire collapsed. So now the Bishop of Rome must rise and be not only a spiritual leader, but also a political figure. And then we have this more jurisdictional authority, and you can see it in all over the places, scholars, when you read, and you can find it. But what is curious, that a lot of Catholic scholars are saying the same thing. They are saying the same thing. They had a very minimalistic concept, and with few of these, best scholars I talked in person, when I asked them, okay, so if the papacy is de jure divina in your thought, and Eastern Orthodox scholars and Protestant are saying no, 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 because in the Bible and in the history we don't find papacy. It's very late development. It's accretion from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or even 11 in Gregorian Reform century. But when you ask the Catholic scholar, not a liberal but this more maybe, it's hard to say it's liberal, but more historical scholars, they are saying that, yeah, I am Catholic, I believe the papacy is the Iure Divina. So we have this, in first century, but it appears like 8th century later, or 5th century later. And in those period of 5 centuries, practically nobody believed it. And I'm saying, oh, but this is very, I think it's not a good way of doing history. It's, you must go or left or right. You must be Catholic and, reading the sources, especially the sources are saying this. It's not just our dogmatic faith that, oh, we must believe that papacy was in the first century. No, the sources, historical sources, are showing that the papacy was practically from the beginning. It was instituted by Christ in the person of Peter and later developed, but this development was very rapid. Like in the 2nd century, I argue in my monograph, and the Cardinal Gerhard Ludwig Müller agree with this, that the first pope after the Peter, we would say, in the from the historical sources, the first pope who has this, who was aware of his jurisdictional responsibility over all the church, entire church. The scholars, modern scholars are saying, oh, it was Leo, first pope in a modern sense, but it was Pope Victor. When you go and examine very carefully the Quartodeciman controversy, like I did in my book, you will see that, oh my goodness, the Pope Victor, he's doing like Pope Leo, Gregory the Great, innocent. So he is very papal. He is, the first pope after Peter. So therefore my studies are, like in the Vatican News they said, are, something fresh, something which is contrary to the scholarship, and scholarship must be, revised on the historical sources, not dogmatic faith, on the historical sources. And about, because you asked me about, sorry, I forgot at the beginning of question about the Iure Divina and the councils. When you, this is really also important, when you examine carefully, I'm doing PhD in the first 5 centuries, understanding of the papal primacy. I read all the Acta of Council of Chalcedon, Ephesus, all the letters, what you can read, I practically all read. And when you see carefully, read the Council of Ephesus and Chalcedon, you will see that not only Pope, the legates of the Pope believed in the de jure divina jurisdictional authority of the Bishop of Rome, but also the Eastern Fathers believe it. It is, I would say, very clear. You can only say it is not there if you don't believe in the papacy and try to argue, you have this mindset, or when you, because of ecumenical dialogue, you don't wanna, you wanna be so polite that it's false, or you have this concept of 2 different ecclesiologies, like we see in the modern scholarship, even in the Reverend Richard Price, which I love him, but this concept of the East does not believe in the papacy and West believe, but only some, and it was gradual. Then you can say, oh, the Council of Ephesus, no, they don't believe it. Chalcedon, they don't believe it. No, even later, Constantinople III, 680, 681, don't believe it. Nicaea too, don't believe it. But when you go and read the sources with open mind, open heart, and you studied it, like I did in the Council of Ephesus and in my lecture, and I show this, the people go to me and say, oh, I've never heard about it, and they are scholars. They are not just lay, oh, but yeah, it's very interesting, but maybe you think anachronistic. One of them told me that, oh, Paul, but maybe you think anachronistic because this primacy of jurisdiction, primatus jurisdictionis, it was never used in the first millennium. It was never used. So, and you are saying that they believed what practically Council of Florence or Vatican I believed. You must be historian. It is anachronistic. And I told him, dear scholar, my friend, yes, the primatus jurisdictionis, the primacy jurisdiction, this term was not there in the first millennium, this jurisdiction. But this term was not in the Nicholas the Great. And do you want to tell me that he does not believe in primacy jurisdiction by the Jure Divina over the entire church? This term was not in the Council of Ephesus on this Nestorian controversy, but I showed what Celestine did, and what he did, it means he has authority, and this authority was jurisdictional. And you cannot say, oh, it was not there. No, the term was not there, but the meaning of the term is much more important, like the same with homoousios. Not in the 1st century, 2nd century, the Christians, even 3rd century, sometimes they do not use this homoousios terminology. But a lot of ante-Nicene fathers believe in the equality of Father and the Son, in the ontological equality, even if there was some subordination, but in the ontological, without saying this is homoousios. So the term is not so important, the meaning is important. And he told me, okay, you have right, but I want to read your article in Studia Patristica. Okay.
Wonderful answer. So I have a few points that I'd like to make in response to what you're saying. So number one, earlier you talked about how the modern day scholarship, it's almost like, okay, yeah, Rome did claim this primacy, gradually developed in the first millennium. Eventually they did claim supremacy, primacy, and all the stuff from Vatican I. Okay, cool. The East never accepted it, and they only accepted conciliarity or collegiality, right? And then it's almost like, okay, you guys are right and we're right too. Let's just shake hands and hold hands, right? But the way I would view is that the whole church, East and West, accepted primacy, not the minimalistic that you're going against. Primacy, like he had jurisdiction, authority, teaching authority, and the church taught at the same time collegiality. Those things go hand in hand. Primacy and collegiality, they're supposed to work together and go hand in hand. I think both of those are true, right? But what they try to do is they try to separate those two things and say the East never accepted primacy the way that the West accepted primacy. And then they try to divide those up where there's no division. That's the first thing. And number two, I also wanted to say, it's almost like they assume that the papacy did not have real authority in the first millennium. And then they work from that. So for example, anytime you show where the papacy, this is the work you do. Anytime you show the papacy operating with such jurisdictional authority, like Saint Celestine excommunicating a patriarch in Constantinople, Nestorius, and Saint Cyril having no issue with that. That's a jurisdictional thing. He's excommunicating him before any council was even talked about in Ephesus, right? So he believes he has that power. It's always talked down and kind of like, all right, because they're assuming it's not true, they explain it away. Oh, it's because of this. Or Saint Maximus the Confessor, the things that he says about Rome. Papal infallibility, universal jurisdiction. He's talking about divine institution. Oh, that's because Rome was the only see that was orthodox at the time. There's always an explanation, but they're looking at these evidences separated by themselves. It's almost like Saint Maximus didn't have any idea what the church has ever taught in the first millennium before him. But if you look at the evidence from Pope Clement, you look at it from Saint Irenaeus, what he says about Rome, Pope Victor, what he does, and you look at all of it in a big picture. It's not even a development of the papacy claiming this jurisdiction that's gradual. Like you said, it's almost like they thought they had this authority from the beginning, and they practiced it when it was needed. They're not sitting there as dictators, telling everyone what to do. That's not the purpose of it. It's a service. It's a service. Like they're serving the church with the authority. So, those are just some points that I had in my mind as you were talking. If you could, if we could talk about,
I could even add to this, if I could just comment, and we can go further about the first, what you rightly point out, the East and West ecclesiology, and they accept papal authority. For my studies, I think we should say this to be even more historical accurate. We have in the Eastern ecclesiology, because there was no one Eastern ecclesiology, it was Eastern ecclesiologies. There was no one, one thing. Each of the father, each of the council, in the environment, they have their own thoughts. But generally, in the Byzantium or the Eastern Church in the first millennium, after the 4th century, they believed, the Easterners, if we could generalize, they believe in the de jure divina authority of the emperor. They believed that the authority of the emperor was by divine right. He was the regent, vice regent of God. His authority was not only earthly authority, but also divine authority. And this is very clearly examples we had, with a lot of, I could give you quotes and quotes, and so from everywhere. So this is the Eastern ecclesiology. Yes, there was very, we could say this was the color, some special color of the Eastern ecclesiology. But in the West, and these scholars are saying, though, this is the East, but the West do not accept it. But when you go and read what the Western popes are saying, the Western popes believes that also not only Bishop of Rome has divine authority, but the emperor also has divine authority to protect the church, not to dogmatize, not to go to the saying, oh, this doctrine you must believe, but to protect the church, protect the ratify ecumenical councils. So, and we see this in Pope Leo and in Pope Gelasius in his letter to Anastasius. I think it was letter 12, about these two powers, two swords. And he's saying explicitly, you have divine authority by God to lead people and also to protect the church. So this was, and Celestine the same are saying to Theodosius, by the way. And Gelasius saying, and also I, and the priest, and I as the Bishop of Rome has divine authority. So now we see, East believe this authority of the Roman emperor, and the West also accept it. But now when we see on the West, the Western popes and Western fathers, they are very clearly saying that the Pope has also the Iure Divina authority, and it was jurisdictional authority. And now when you clearly see the Eastern fathers and Eastern councils, ecumenical councils, you see that they accept it. So you cannot say that, we have East with the emperor and the West with the Pope, because now you must go to check the data. So this is important. And also what you said about the Maximus the Confessor and the Pope Celestine, about the Maximus Confessor, I think the Chieti document also cite in the footnotes, I think the Maximus, but like you said, a great job was done by Jean-Claude Lachette. He is one of the best Maximian scholars, and he tried to diminish, especially in his works. He did a lot of translation of Maximus, and we are thanks to him. But he wanna diminish the authority of the Bishop of Rome in the Maximus, and you can see it. This is the way he's doing as an Eastern Orthodox scholar. He do not treat the data and the conclusion where the text really are saying, to be honest. But maybe we could go to this later. But yeah, just a few thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's the great points there. So let's start. I mean, let's go into this and where is the evidence in the first millennium? And the floor is yours. I mean, you take it wherever you want. Where is the evidence of, say, Vatican I papacy, ecclesiology in the first millennium? And maybe we can start from the beginning and work our way.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go to a discussion, but I will start from my studies. The Quartodeciman controversy in the 2nd century, at the end of the 2nd century, and Pope Victor in the current studies, like I wrote in my book, the current studies, they do not see the full picture. He's a lot of time diminished. He's a lot of time, this is too early, like to have. And I am, I wrote, I showed that the action of Pope Victor. So imagine we have the Pope at the end of the 2nd century, and we have this controversy of the Eastern data, where we should celebrate the Easter. We have Quartodecimans who said, it's 14th day of Nisan. This is, they are very Jewish Christians. And we have others which say we should celebrate in the Sunday after this 40th day of Nisan, always in Sunday. And this was the Roman custom, not only Roman, but like Eusebius of Caesarea said, most of the churches believed it. But in Asia Minor, they are quartodecimal. And now imagine this. The Polycrates, so first, there is controversy in Rome. Blastus, he was a Montanist. He tried to do this 40 day of Nisan in Rome. And we had in Rome at that time of Pope Victor and earlier of Pope Anicetus a lot of Asian Christians. They were took from Asia to Rome by Emperor Adrian and Emperor Trajan. So we have a lot of people, Christian people from East, going to the Rome. So when they go to Rome, they had their own custom of 40 day of Nisan. And there is controversy in Rome. And Pope Victor said that we must celebrate at one day the Easter at Rome. And now, what the Asiatic churches are doing, they appealed to Polycrates of Ephesus. They appealed to their homeland to argue with Pope Victor. And then what Pope Victor are doing, this is very important. We have this in a letter of Polycrates of Ephesus, the Bishop of Ephesus, and this letter is in the Eusebius of Caesarea, Ecclesiastical History. And Polycrates are saying that we convened a synod in Ephesus because you demanded it. And in all the churches in the East and West, we have a synods in Gaul, in Mesopotamia, in Caesarea Palestine, in Alexandria, in Ethiopia, all the East and West, we have the synods. And we see that Polycrates said, we convened a synod because Pope Victor demanded. So we see that Pope Victor, first of all, act authoritatively and initiate the synods in all the churches. So this is act of some of authority. So this action in others, like in Polycrates and others bishops in the East and West, they saw this as using his authority. They accepted. So he, demanded the synods. This is something very interesting, I would say. And later, so this is the first, and later, the Pope, the Polycrates do not agree with Victor. And the Asiatic churches, they say, we do not want to celebrate the day like you said, Pope Victor. We don't want to do this. But there's very important thing. They opposed not only Pope Victor, but they opposed the old church, authority of the old churches, not only Pope Victor. And what the Victor are saying, he threatened them with excommunication from koinechenosis, the common unity of the churches. Oh my goodness, we should ponder about this, what he wants us to do. So he said that you will be excommunicated, not from Roman church, my church. Because the excommunication in the early church, every bishop could excommunicate anybody. Like we have Basil the Great, excommunicate Eustathius of Sebaste, and Eustathius of Sebaste excommunicate Basil the Great. But Armenia does not have authority on Cappadocia, and Cappadocia on Armenia. But so there was local. But Pope Victor is saying you will be excommunicated from the entire church. And this is the example of tremendous authority. And this is not just authority of honor. He is thinking, Pope Victor, that he could, cut off apostolic churches of the East. Apostolic churches of the East from the Catholic Church, ontologically. So he is acting as the head of the church with authority. To do this, you must have jurisdiction. To do this, you cannot do it. But now, some scholars, like in earlier times, we have in Deni, in Papalism, and in Goethe, and nowadays a lot of scholars are saying, but wait a second, wait a second. Irenaeus with Lyon and other bishops harshly rebuke Victor. They do not believe that he has this authority. But when you go clearly read what the Eusebius of Caesarea are saying, they said that please do not do this. So they ask him that don't do it. You shouldn't do it. It will be not good for them. But nobody said to him, to Victor, you don't have authority to do it. And if he does not have authority, if he acting ultra vires, then Irenaeus, others, they told him this, but nobody. So they believe that Pope Victor has authority, jurisdictional authority to cut off apostolic churches from the East, but they thought it is not good to do it for the peace of the church. Maybe we should, talk and be in one communion. But nobody said he does not have this authority. And so, I mean, this is when we start from this we see the primacy of jurisdiction of the Bishop of Rome, Victor, and we see the collegiality. Like you said, the primacy and collegiality, it's not in opposition, because Pope Victor, in his mind, he believed that he has authority over the Eastern Church, and he could give demands. So this is not only auctoritas, we could say this is potestas or imperium to the East. He believed in it, and even in the East and West, they believe also that he could do it, but it's not good to do it in this way. So I think, and what is also important, that Pope Victor does not say, oh, this is my thought, my mind, I am the autocrat, and you must do it. No, he convened all the councils in all the church to see what is the mind of the church, what the church is believing. So he acting with authority jurisdictional, but there was also collegiality in this synodality. So this is not opposition. This is like Catholic Church believes in Lumen Gentium. Only other people who does not understand correctly the authority of
will be Petrus.
papacy, or others, they are trying to pause and see this and that, but it's a nonsense from nonsense. Okay, so I would start that. What do you think about this?
So I saw some points there. So number one.
Sorry, maybe I'm too long, but
not at all. This is excellent stuff. So just remind folks, because this sounds like this is happening in the middle of the 12th century, what you're explaining, the authority of the Pope and thinking he has this and he's doing all this. When did this all take place? What was the year? It was 180 AD, somewhere around there, or earlier, or somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, so this is 190.
So we're still in the 2nd century, late 2nd century. We haven't even turned to the 3rd century yet. The church hasn't been an official religion yet of the empire, right? Not yet. So it's the Protestant can't say, oh, because the Roman Empire took over and now the church is corrupted. No, we can't even go that far now, because we're not even there yet. Because I have some Protestants who would say that the church went downhill after it became the official religion of the secular world. So you can't even go there. So now we're talking about authority claimed by Pope Victor. Now, you mentioned this and you put it beautifully, because I want to drive this point even harder. Is Pope Victor called out for synods, like you said, synods to be held all over the world, basically in his world. Somebody like Ubi Petrus, or somebody like Craig Trulia, or somebody like, I don't know, whoever the Eastern Orthodox apologists, this is what they would say. They would say, in order for you to find evidence of Vatican I ecclesiology, you must find evidence of a pope doing something alone in his own name without convening any synods. Right? And so they're saying, okay, this Pope Victor thing, even Pope Celestine or Pope Leo, they all held synods before they did anything. Pope Leo held a synod before he wrote his tome. Pope Celestine held a synod before he wanted to excommunicate Nestorius. Excuse me. Pope Victor held synods and stuff like before he did all this. Does that go? Would you say that does not suffice for Vatican I? Evidence for Vatican I. Is that fair to say? Because this is the contention in apologetics today. Do we need to find evidence to where the Pope doesn't hold a synod, just does something on his own that nobody agrees with, and then they agree with it just because he said so? Is that what we teach? Is that Vatican I?
No. The Vatican I, in Vatican I, Vatican II. So also when you go read in Vatican I, Relatio of Gasser, When you go read later Vatican II and scholars, the papacy always, in the ancient time, the first millennium, and also nowadays, and in the 20th century and earlier, 19th century, acted in a collegial way. There were, like Pope Victor convened synod in Rome, and convened synods in everywhere. Pope Leo, who believed in primacy of jurisdiction, convened synod in Rome, and he was the head of the synod, and they decided, and this is also very important. The Klaus Schatz wrote great monograph on the history of the ecumenical councils, not this papal primacy. I'm not saying, but no, not this papal primacy, but on the ecumenical councils, and from the 2,000 years of history. I do not know it is translated in English, but it is in German original and translated in Polish. And he said that the Bishop of Rome always acted with his synod. His synod in Rome was his advisory, like cardinals you have, nowadays, or other bishops. There was also so he ruled that whole the church, east and west, and decided the most important doctrinal questions and disciplinarian questions at his synod, with his brothers. But this does not oppose to his authority, as he has this primacy of jurisdiction, because like Celestine, he also had a synod, but this was on his authority, special authority, that he deposed and said that you're out of Nestorius. He threatened him of excommunication. So it was, you cannot say, whenever you're a Protestant, an Orthodox, Catholic, that the primacy of jurisdiction means you're autocrat, you must do everything alone, without cooperation of bishops, because this is a straw man. This is not what the Catholic Church now believes, and this is not what the First Millennium Church functioned, even in Rome, even in time of Pope Nicholas the Great, even in time of Pope Agathon, Pope Hormisdas, Pope Leo, who everybody are saying that Pope Leo has this jurisdictional authority. So, it's not fair, to historical sources.
Absolutely, and that's the point that folks need to really grasp in this apologetical world, right? This is the biggest point, and this is the biggest straw man. And so when they're asking us to show you evidence of Vatican I ecclesiology in the first millennium, and as Catholics, we're showing them these things. To us, they are evidence because we understand Vatican I the right way. To them, it's not evidence because they have a straw man and a misunderstanding of Vatican I. And this is where we're talking past each other. And this is where with my work, I try to clarify what Vatican I taught, what Vatican II taught, what the papacy is. And that can move the conversation forward if they just listened, but they're just so adamant. So, for example, one of the things is the popular Dictatus Papae, right? It's the talking point of Eastern Orthodox apologetics. Dictatus Papae is not even a magisterial authority. It has no magisterial authority, zero. It has no weight, right? It's not even relevant to the question. Like, if you want to talk about what we believe, go to Vatican I. You don't need to go to Dictatus Papae. We've already defined ecclesiology specifically of what it is, what it means, and how we understand it at Vatican I. And then at Vatican II, this is what we talked about in these councils. So now we're done with the second century. And behind the scenes, we were talking about the Pelagian controversy and how I think that's an underrated part of evidence for the papacy. And because it's underrated, people don't like to use it because they say, oh, that happened in the West. The Pope dealt with a Western controversy, so it doesn't apply. You can't say it was a universal thing. But how did the popes understand their decrees in this controversy? Did they understand it as it applying only in the West, or did they understand it applying universally?
So they, like Pope Innocent and Pope Zosimus, they understand it that their decree, like for Pope Celestine, I think it was 27th January 417, when he gives his decision about Pelagius and Celestius and the doctrine of the Pelagianism condemned it. So the popes acknowledge, especially Popes Innocent and Zosimus, that they have authority in the whole the church. So their decree is binding even on the eastern part of the church, is binding. So, it is very important. It was not just only popes, in this controversy. They thought, oh, we had this, authority, and everybody, saying, oh, what the heck, what are they saying? No, like Augustine, Westerners, they acknowledge this authority of the Pope that goes in the universal room, in the universal church. And this is very also important because, like, when the two councils from 460, the Milev, these two councils, when they wrote to Pope Celestine, and Pope Celestine wrote them back, it was for the good of all the churches. This controversy was not only Western controversy, because the controversy started. One of the main reasons was 415 Synod of Diospolis. It was in Jerusalem, in the east. And, the Pelagius was acquitted, saying that, oh, he's Orthodox. And then they appealed from the Jerusalem. There was appealed to the west, to the Rome, to the Pope Innocent. And so authority and decision of the Pope Innocent, and also Tractoria of Pope Zosimus, like the fathers are saying, it is the sword of Peter. The bishops received from Rome the sword of Peter to cut off this heresy universally. And there is a very good quote. I think I have it somewhere from my previous debate about this concept. I will maybe find it. Oh yeah, this is from Prosper of Aquitain, in the defense of St. Augustine, if this is his work, but there is some debate. But pseudo Prosper of Aquitain, but probably Prosper of Aquitain, he said that, quote, Zosimus of happy memory added the authority of his own judgment to the decrees of the African councils, and so placed the sword of Peter in the hands of all the bishops to cut off the heretics from our communion, close quote. And now when you can tell me that, oh, Paul, but here saying, no, okay, he said that all the bishops, but he understand only Western Church, not Eastern. But I'm strongly disagree with this kind of interpretation. And because not only this, but because even furthermore, we see in the Posidius, this was one of the fathers, Posidius, he wrote in 437, I believe, in Vita Augusti, to work on the life of Augustine, Vita Augusti, 437, yeah. And he, in this document, wrote about Pope's decrees and about, the Tractoria. And he said this, I will quote, and these bishops of so great a see successively branded them and cut them off from the members of the church, giving letters to the African churches in the West and to the churches of the East, and declared that they were to be anathematized and avoided by all Catholics. And when he are saying, now I'll just add, and when he's saying that these bishops were cut off, he's saying about decree of Pope Innocent and Zosimus. So he's saying that Zosimus, Innocent and Zosimus, cut them off, so the Pelagian heretics, from the members of the church, giving letters to the African churches in the West and to the churches of the East, and declared that they were to be anathematized and avoided by all the Catholics. So now, close quote, we see all the Catholics, West and East, not only East. And so I think this is very important to understand it, not just only to focus that, there was some controversy with Pope Zosimus, or the Africans, Augustine doesn't believe in the Pope's authority like he believes. No, they believe in it, even if they not always agree with some things. but in essence they believe it. And these Posidiots are saying this was East and West cut off from the entire church.
That's a great answer. And just to piggyback on that, number one, I think what some folks would say, and we can address that, is that okay, that's fine. You know, the West claimed that this is for the whole church. That's what they claimed, right? But the East didn't accept that. Now, here's a problem I have with that. Number one, it's almost like you're saying that the West was orthodox in everything. Like it was looked at as the measure of orthodoxy in the first millennium. The West was so scrupulous about keeping the traditions of the apostles. That's what they were known for. That was the reputation of the Roman Church, is that they pass on the teachings of the apostles without any blemish or stain. That's what they said. You know, that was what they were known for. The measure of orthodoxy. That's where the East went to see if their teachings are right or wrong. You know, that's St. Cyril went to Pope Celestine, and we have so many examples of that, right? So, excuse me. But if folks are saying that the West was right on everything except for ecclesiology, which is a big part because that's kind of the question of authority, that's kind of silly, right? You're trying to fit a circle in a square. You're just trying to make it something fit inorganically. It doesn't work, right? And if the West claimed this ecclesiology, but the East didn't accept it, but that's not the church's official position, well, now you have two competing ecclesiologies, so to speak, where you have the West claiming something and the East claiming something else. That's a problem, because once you get to the controversy, let's say, of 649, we might get there in a little bit, but let's just fast forward a little bit. Lateran 649, where you had Rome as the only see or patriarchate that was Orthodox at the time. Are you now saying that in 649, when the whole Eastern Church fell into heresy, all the patriarchs, except for Rome, are you now saying that the church at that time, because it's only Rome that's Orthodox, had a Vatican I type of mentality, because it was the only one left? So now you're saying, if you're saying that this ecclesiology of Vatican I is heretical, well, now you're saying that 649, where Rome was alone in its orthodoxy, was holding a heretical ecclesiology that no one accepted. But who cares what anyone accepted in the East? They were heretics at that point. So they had to come back into the fold for their opinion to even matter. But now you have a problem with saying that the church fell into heresy in 649 because of Pope Martin, what he claimed, what the Synod was doing. It was authoritative. It said all these Roman primacy words, right? With Stephen of Dore, you had Maximus the Confessor. The whole controversy was so pro-Roman ecclesiology, and that was all there was in an Orthodox manner. Like, that's the only Orthodox church that you could point to and say, okay, this is all we can listen to. And these guys were claiming what seemed to be Vatican I ecclesiology. Those are just my points on that. If somebody were to say, okay, the West claimed that, but the East didn't really hold to it.
Yes, and even if I could add just one thing to this, yeah, I'm 100% agree with you. But if somebody said, oh, okay, in the West, at the beginning of the 5th century, they believe in this authority of the Pope, not only in the 7th century, but the East does not believe it. Now, I give you one example, because there are so many in my book. I present and analyze so many examples from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th centuries. There are not just 1, 2, 5, but there are I think 60 examples I gave in my book from the East, and analyzing it. But I give you one example which is very so early, so powerful, and it's very rarely known. Maybe, but we will see that. The example from the 4th century. There is this controversy. We have Pope Liberius. Now, a lot of people saying, oh, this Pope Liberius, fail of Pope Liberius. But after he went to Rome, from the exile. In 365, there was sent, that's 365, there was sent embassy from the east to the Pope Liberius, because in the current political situation, there was the Emperor Valens, very Arian, Emperor Valens, and he persecuted Orthodox Christians, not only this homoousios, but also other Nicene. And they went embassy from the eastern bishops to Bishop of Rome and to the Emperor Valentinian I, and to the Emperor Valentinian I. And in this embassy was the Eustathius of Sebaste. Eustathius of Sebaste. And they, and he said to Pope Liberius, help us. And we are Nicene. We accept the homoousios, Council of Nicaea. Pope Liberius said, oh no, I don't believe you. We are talking the words from your mouth. Signed the oath, signed the document that you are a Nicene. Then I will treat you as an Orthodox. You will be in my communion. And he signed the document. And we have this in Socrates Scholasticus, Historia Ecclesiastica. This is also interesting. When he signed this document, the Statutes of Sebaste, he said that if anybody from the East and the West, but especially from the East, will say that I am unorthodox, I am heretic, you must show me the letter from the Pope saying that I am heretic. Then I will believe you. If not, I am Orthodox. If Pope accepts me as Orthodox, for everybody I am Orthodox, and from the East. And this is, we see in this in Socrates Scholasticus, in the words of Meletius, in the words of Eustathius, of Statues of Sebaste. He's saying this. I don't have this quote. I can find it if you want to just read, but he said this. This is interesting. And now, later, Pope Liberius, when Eustathius of Sebaste, so see, Eastern bishop from the East, write this, that he believed in the Nicene faith, Liberius, what he did? Because Eustathius of Sebaste was deposed bishop, was not a valid bishop. He was deposed by a Council of Tiana in 358. He was deposed by a Council of Tiana. And now when he signed that he agrees in the Nicene faith, Pope Liberius, and this Basil the Great told us in 377, that Pope Liberius give him back his position in the church, give him his bishopric, authoritatively. So he was deposed by the Eastern Synod. He was the Eastern bishop. He went to Pope Liberius, and Pope Liberius, Basil the Great are saying, give him back his position, that you are now the bishop. And what we have, how the East, look at this example of action of the Pope. They are saying, whoa, usurpation of power. We condemn him here. You don't have jurisdiction in the East. No, you cannot do it. what they said. He came back to the East and show the letter from Liberius that he has his bishopric back and he's in the church as a bishop, and the Council of Meliteu accept him. So he showed for the Council of Meliteu that he is the bishop now. He restored, the Liberius restored him to bishopric, and the Council of Meliteu, agreed. If the Bishop of Rome give you back your position, you are in the church. So, and they recognize it. Nobody protested. Even Basil the Great, who does not like Pope Damasus. Nobody protested. Nobody said that. Oh my goodness, what are you? No, you don't have. No, and the East accepted.
Right. And so, what jurisdiction was he under? This bishop, this Eastern bishop, do you know?
It was in jurisdiction, will be in Armenia.
So is that okay? Armenia. Okay.
I think it is. But maybe I would not find, but I think it is.
Definitely outside of Roman.
Oh, no. He was, he was in, Sebasta is, I was right. Sebasta is in Armenia. And this synod was Eastern synod. So he was not in, so he was Eastern bishop under Eastern territory, Eastern jurisdiction, Eastern synod. And he was, rightfully and authoritatively, so East deposed him.
Yeah.
He received his position back in the West, and East said, "Oh, if the Pope Liberius did it, you are the right for the church," and they accepted.
That's a great example, and the reason, number one, is because in Chalcedon, what happened before Chalcedon in 449, there were bishops that were excommunicated, and they were stripped of their bishopric, right? And then they appeal to Pope Leo. I think, is it Theodore or Theodore? I always get those two confused.
Yeah, there was three bishops.
Yes.
It was Eusebius of Dorylaeum. He was the lawyer in Constantinople. Later, he became the bishop of Dorylaeum. He was the Flavian of Constantinople, Saint Flavian of Constantinople, and Theodoret of Cyrus, bishop in Antioch, in the Cyrus, in Antiochian church. And they appeal. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and they appealed, and now here's the Eastern Orthodox response, or Oriental Orthodox. Well, they don't really care about this controversy at this point, or Protestant response. In that time period, Pope Leo reinstates them, right? He writes a letter. He says, "Hey, you're good to go home. You're okay now." When they show up to the council, they are the Eastern bishops there, do they accept that Leo reinstated them, or do they feel like that's not enough? And this is where the Eastern Orthodox or Protestants will say, see, it's not enough that Pope Leo did that. But the example that you just gave, there is no Eastern church that needed accepted, right? It was enough. Like, it was Pope Leo reinstated that bishop, the Eastern bishop, and that was it, right? There was no council that needed to be held in the East for them to agree with the Pope. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think maybe you froze or I froze. Can you guys still hear me, or is Powell still there? Or maybe he's just really good at just.
Oh, sorry, because my screen was frozen, and you said that the East. Yeah, could you repeat? Sorry, they go. Yeah, if you could repeat.
So these bishops, they get reinstated by Pope Leo, but when they show up to Chalcedon, it seems like to those Eastern bishops, it seems like that wasn't enough for them, that Pope Leo reinstated them, that they had to repent and say, I reject Nestorius, and I accept this, and I accept this and that. But the example that you gave, because the East will point to that and say, see, the Pope Leo wasn't enough. The East had to do it too. But the example that you gave shows that the Pope is enough, right? If the Pope reinstates somebody, then that's it. You're reinstated, right? Did the East, in your example that you gave, because I haven't heard this before, like you said, you were right. Did the East have to accept the Pope's reinstatement of this Eastern bishop for it to take any validity, so to speak? Or did the church just accept that reinstatement, just like they did with Athanasius when he was reinstated by Pope Julius? And again, I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, but of course they have to accept, but it is not that because they accept, this is the right act of the Pope. They accept it because of the act of the Pope, like in the example I gave you from Pope Liberius and Eustatius of Sebaste. He was deposed by the Eastern. He go to the Rome back, and because the East, there is all the Eastern fathers and the Eastern bishops are always very trying. We are doing our things here in the East. They don't like everybody go to appeal, but when the Pope reinstated him, like with the Athanasius, they said, okay, so you are now in the church. we must accept it, and they accept it. So you cannot, and this is also because later, if I could, I will tell something about this example of Pope Leo and this three bishops. I wanna more say about it, but just but 1 minute later, because think about this. What Eustathius of Sebaste said. He said that if wanna go and debate with me and saying that I am heretic, you must have the letter from Liberius saying that I am heretic. This is heretical position, and we should believe different way. If and he said this, he wrote this, he said this, the Eustathius of Sebaste to Pope Liberius, and he wrote this in the confession, written confession. If in his mind, like think about this, if in his mind as an Eastern bishop, he knew that the Eastern Church do not believe in this, we would say, special or jurisdictional authority of the Bishop of Rome. These words are, mean nothing. What he can gain? What he can gain if he knew that the Pope does not have this authority. He did not act in this. And the same with Pope Leo and the Eusebius of Dorylaeum. So now we have Latrocinium Concilium. We have this council, Second Council of Ephesus, or the Rubber Council, like the Pope Leo called it rightly, the Dean of Thieves. We have this council, and now this is important. I also talk about this in this debate with the other Paul, so let's check it. I give it more fully, but the Council of Ephesus, from now our historical point, now from as Catholics, we are saying, this was not ecumenical council. But in this time, during this Council of Ephesus the Second, 449, for most of the Eastern bishops and emperor, this was ecumenical council. Even for the Theodoret of Cyrus, he saw this as a judgment, a rightful judgment. Because when he appealed to the Pope Leo, who written his at the end of the year his appellation to Leo, he is saying to Leo, they judged me, and I am judged. He does not say, this is not rightful judgment, they have no authority to do it. No, they judge me. And now please, if they are right and I should be deposed, so ratify this, and this will be the final judgment. If not, change this, and I will wait only the judgment of Christ if you do not speak. So he saw this judgment of Council of the Second as a not a good judgment in a way they shouldn't do it, but from the let's say the canonical, it was the judgment which could they do. And for the Eastern bishops, this council was ecumenical for most of the Eastern. It was accepted by Alexandria, by Antioch, by Jerusalem. Most of the metropolians, the bishops of Eastern metropolis, they accepted this council. Emperor ratified this council. Pope Leo, no, he does not accept it. But for this Eastern people, it was the council with authority, speaking. Council with authority, and they went, like Eusebius of Dorylaeum, this is important. They appealed to the Pope, and what Eusebius of Dorylaeum are saying, and he said this, words, and I quote to you. Just give me a second. I had it somewhere. Oh yeah, I have it. So, quote, this is the appellation of Eusebius Dorylaeum to Pope Leo after the Council of Ephesus II. I entreat your blessedness, quote, pronounce the reversal and nullity of any unjust condemnation by the most religious Dioscurus, and of their decree, who were forced into consenting of his will, and give me back the dignity of my episcopate and communion with yourself by letters from you to my lowliness, bestowing on me my rank and communion. So imagine, if he knew that the East, that the Pope does not have authority over the East, And this is the jurisdictional responsibility and he was deposed by the Ecumenical Council. So he appealed above the Ecumenical Council to Pope, believing that he has authority over this Latrocinium Synod, that he can give his decision, his position, if he does not believe it, and if he knew that the Orthodox in the eastern part of this of this church does not believe it, his words were, without sense, because this is like example, when somebody accuses you of a crime. So what you will do? You will go to the judge and to the judgment, and when they are, the judge in the court, when they are saying with authority, and you do not go to your friend or to somebody who, to tell, say authoritatively that I am right or I am wrong. You don't do it. The same, by the way, Maximus the Confessor said the similar words in, it was, I think, Opuscula 12, at the Petrus Illustrius, to Peter Illustrius, that do not go to me. I cannot judge you, but there is one person who is instituted by law, divine law, to judge you, dear Petrus. This is the Bishop of Rome, and go there. So we have this example. And about Theodoret of Cyrus, what you said. And now a lot of people, a lot of Eastern Orthodox and Protestant are arguing, the Pope restoration was not enough because the Council, restored Theodoret of Cyrus. So if the Pope has the supremacy, it was superfluous to the Council to do it. If the Council did it, there was no papacy. Oh my goodness, this is, sorry that I'm laughing, and not just, but this is not from the historical perspective. It is so nonsense, and I will tell you why. Do you know why Macedonia, the bishops were one more time judged, like Theodoret of Cyrus? Why? Because the Empress Pulcheria, she wrote before the council the letter to Leo, and she said, what will be about the council? What is the aim of the council? And she said, there are two things. Confess the Orthodox faith, and we must do in a rightful canonical way with the bishops who blemish themselves at the Council of Ephesus II. So they must be judged. And you know what? This was not only Pulcheria said, but Leo said this was one of the main aim of the council, to examine these bishops once again. But wait a second, Leo authoritatively give back position of Theodoret of Cyrus. He said, you are in the church, you received it. But so Leo believed that I can give you your position back, even above the council, ratified by emperor, and most of the Eastern. And Leo in the same, so he believed in primacy of jurisdiction, but in the same thing he said, it must do, you are back in the church, but we must do at the council that we must, deal with your example to hold the church, that everybody will see it. But this is not contradictory to Leo that I don't have authority to give you back your position. Because when Theodoret of Cyrus, when his position was back under the council or before, and we see it at the first session of the ecumenical council, and I can read you, because somebody said, oh, no, you are telling me no, this is not true, and I will read you. I will just must find my wait, just 1 minute, please.
Take your time, brother, and I'll just make a comment here with the example that you're given that we're talking about. Did they reinstate? Was he reinstated by Leo sufficiently? Did the East have to accept it? It's almost like they're just removing the historical context, and they're just trying to pin, as they always try to do, the primacy versus the collegiality or synodality or conciliarity, whatever you want to call it. But they're always trying to pin the Pope versus the bishops. It's almost like, hey, this guy, we don't really care what he says, and this guy says, no, you should care what I say. And that's the kind of ecclesiology that's throughout the first millennium, is this power struggle between the Pope and the bishops, and they're always trying to pin them against each other. but I don't think that's how they looked at it in the historically speaking. But not, I mean, sometimes maybe here and there examples, but for the most part, that's not how the church operated. It wasn't a power struggle between pope and bishops. It was more of a power struggle, honestly, between sometimes pope and emperor. You could say that, but not bishops. And the bishops are just following the emperor sometimes. But go ahead if you have the quote.
Yeah, so we see, we see in this was on the eighth session that Theodoret was solemnly restored back to his position by the council, and this was demanding by the Leo also. No, so we don't have this tension of, so this is primacy jurisdiction or collegiality. It was this and this. But we see that the Theodoret of Cyrus was not only at the eighth session, now he's back in the church. Because before, who could say somebody, Council of Ephesus II deposed him. Now Leo tried him back into the church, and now he does not have this authority, and Council now solemnly at the eighth session give his position back as the Bishop of Cyrus. Now, because at the first session, before eighth, first session, we read, quote, "The most glorious officials and the exalted Senate said, let the most devout Theodoret enter and take part in the council, since the most holy Archbishop Leo restored his see to him, and since the most divine and pious emperor has decreed his attendance at the Holy Council." Close quote. So we see the emperor wanted that this Theodoret be at the council. It was Emperor Marcian, he was Orthodox. He wanted, but he does not give him back his position, because the emperor, it was not the emperor's job, even if emperors try to do it, like with Caesar, even and so on. But the Senate and officials said, who back the position back to the Theodoret? It was Leo. So he restored his seat to him. He can be at the council. And later, at the same session, they said that, quote, "the most devout bishop Theodoret, restored to his see by the most holy archbishop of the renowned city of Rome, has now appeared in the role of accuser," close quote. And later, we see this. Let's just find it. We see this in. I think it will be in the fourth session. Yes, in the fourth session. How Theodoret is called, quote, "Theodoret, the most devout bishop of Cyrus, said." So we see the council treated Theodoret as a bishop of Cyrus even before eighth session, when the council solemnly said that he is Orthodox and he is the bishop of Cyrus. And the council did this at the eighth session because Leo wanted to do it. Not that just because it is opposition to his authority, but because the things must be done in a canonical way. Like in the Ephesus 2, they were deposed. Now I give this position back, and in the Council of Chalcedon we must treat their cases. There is no contradiction. If you understand the history and you read the letters, how they treat this is very clear. Maybe I will find even one quote. Yes. And this is also at the eighth session. This is also at the eighth session. And this is Paschazinus and Lucentius, the most devout bishops, and the Julian, the city of Kos, said, quote, this is at the eighth session, "the most holy and blessed Leo of the whole church, bishop of the city of Rome, received the most holy and venerable Bishop Theodoret into communion some time ago." So and he was back into the church. So even at this eighth session, they see this. So there is no contradiction. You cannot just pick one, don't show the second thing, and only focus on this and give and take this context of restoration by the council and take this from the context, from the historical context, and give another meaning, which is unhistorical. You
Absolutely.
cannot do it, and they do it. And you
Yes.
cannot do it because you are now honest person.
It's an apologetical agenda. So it's not staying true to what the history is showing us, right? Because even if you were to grant them the point, but you can't because history can't do that for us. But even if we were to grant them the point, what do you do with, like you mentioned earlier, Saint Athanasius, who was restored by Pope Julius? There was no Eastern Council, ecumenical council that was held that said Saint Athanasius is now restored by Rome. No, he was restored by Pope Julius. That's it. That was sufficient, right? So why wouldn't Leo's restoration of these bishops be sufficient? And I think you do a good job of showing that. Now, speaking of, and are you done with that point? Or because I had a question for you. Maybe one last point. I don't know how much longer you have. I think we like.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe some questions, or what we'll see. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe just to say one thing,
sure.
just one about Athanasius,
Yeah.
and very shortly. This is also important example because, um, like you said, when Athanasius, in his apology of Constantius, he said, "Now I go only to Rome," because he was deposed at the Council of Tyre in 335 and at the Council of Antioch 339. And then with four other bishops, so there were five bishops: Paul of Constantinople, Marcellus of Ankara, Athanasius. They went to the Julius, and Julius at the council in Rome, 340 or 341 council notes. He gave them back their position, and this was the Sozomen and Socrates Scholasticus are saying this. And now, what was very important for me in my studies and in my journey, intellectual journey to the papacy, you know who opposed to this authority that the Pope cannot act jurisdictionally and revised the final for the East semi-Arian Easterners, final decisions of the Eastern synods. And this is that it was for semi-Arians. They were not Orthodox, they were semi-Arians. So who do not accept this Pope's authority? Semi-Arians. No, now we would say that the heretics or quasi-heretics. They said you don't have authority to do it. They wrote a harsh letter in an Antioch, Council of Antioch, of dedication of the temple. They wrote a harsh letter to Julius to attack him. But who agrees that Julius have this authority? Orthodox, Homoousian party, Nicene party, Athanasius, and we see in Council of Sardica there was a lot of Eastern bishops from Egypt, Palestine, not as Alexandria, but they were Orthodox, not semi-Arians. So semi-Arians said, you don't have authority, and this is jurisdiction, to revise our synods, which for them was final. This was some kind of autocephalus. They tried to be autocephalic. But Julius said, no. He wrote a letter and saying that the cases of Alexandria are decided here. This is the tradition. This we received from the Apostle Peter. And only do not agree with this, not the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, I would say, of this path, but the semi-Arians, heretics. So I want to give this to all who listen to this. Don't be semi-Arian, be Orthodox, and accept Pope's authority.
That's a great point. I think Eric Ibarra makes that point. I want to say I've heard him say it. I think maybe I've read it in his book as well. That's a great point. And then once you also get to Pope Celestine and Saint Cyril in Nestorius controversy, Saint Cyril was confused. He was like, we got this 10-day ultimatum, and when the council is being talked about being held, he's like, what do I do with this 10-day ultimatum? He was like, because he wasn't saying, oh, Pope Celestine doesn't have the authority. No, he's saying he has the authority. He can do this, and he did do this. So now what do we do? And he was like, what do I do with this letter? So there is validity in what the Pope says, even when he excommunicates a patriarch outside his jurisdiction, right? So,
yeah, and there is also an important example in this. Maybe I can talk about this, or if you want to go to somewhere another, part, we can.
Yeah, well, before we end this, I do want to get my my question out that's very important.
Okay.
Is lately I've been looking into the Sardican canons.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Sardican canons, and I see that there are very minority of scholars, maybe old scholars back then, who believe that the Roman appellate canons were forgeries that were added later, maybe in the 5th century. I've seen some say in the early 5th century, like 415, or some say that they were added after Chalcedon, because Pope Leo wanted to have the authority to say, I can reinstate Eastern bishops. Is there any evidence? What does the scholarship say about the Sardican canons? Are
Okay,
they,
yes. So, yeah, there are some scholars because they're saying that this canons was not aware in Africa in the 5th century. In this controversy when in Rome, this canons 3, 4, and 5, which is these canons are saying that when any bishop are deposed in the East, ultimately he can go to the Bishop of Rome and his case will be opened. There are some scholars that are saying that, but the church does not know about these canons in the 5th century, or in these cases. In Africa, they forgot about it, so they not forgot, but it was added later. But you don't have any good linguistic and historical sources, arguments to say this. This is very minority of scholars. Some just saying this, but it was refuted time ago, so it's not good to say this. But most scholars, because they have minimalistic concept of the papacy, they are trying to say that this Sardican Council was in reality diminish the authority of the Pope, try to diminish. Why? And they are saying that the Pope is not the final appellate, but that the Pope cannot decide, but it's only the revision court. So the Sardican canons are saying that not the Pope are deciding final authority he is, but only he can open the case, and this case could be one more judged near the case of previous judgment of this bishop. So this was not final appellation, but only revision court. And this is most scholars are trying to put in this way. But there is a problem with this kind of interpretation. Yeah, it's because when you see the context of the Sardican canons, which was proposed by Josius of Cordova, especially the first Josius of Cordova was he presided the Council of Sardica, which was meant to be ecumenical council, by the way. It was convoked by the Eastern and Western Emperor, and even Athanasius the Great thought that Sardica was ecumenical, by the way. It was not ecumenical, but he thought. It was very... also some bishops, Eastern semi-Arians bishops, when they see at the first session that the council fathers want to restore Athanasius, they break from the council and go to Philippolis. And there was second semi-Arian in Philippolis, and they are saying that they want to go there because the Emperor Constantius has the victory over the Persian. But it was not. But why this kind of interpretation of minimalistic concept that Pope does not have even this authority, appellation, final authority, proposed by scholars is wrong. I'll give you a lot of arguments, but one is very important: the context. Context. Why the Sardica Council was convoked? Because of the Athanasius the Great and others bishops, and these bishops was restored. So how Pope I am frozen. How Pope Julius acted? He does not say, "Okay, you go to me, and now we'll do some another council near in Alexandria or somewhere, and I will send legates, and we'll see." No, he authoritatively give them position back in a Roman synod, and like Socrates and Sozomenus said, give the letters, go the east, and you're back. No discussion. No discussion. No, this is Roma locuta causa finita. Roma locuta est causa finita est. No, you are back in the church. He does not say, oh, maybe we'll do some ecumenical council, or I will ask, what is your opinion? No, I will give you the position back. And on this action, Vatican Council accept that the Pope can do it. The semi-Arians, the Council of Philippolis, does not agree. Said the Pope cannot revise it. But Vatican canons and the fathers of this council, with Athanasius the Great, said that Pope has this authority. And later, with the Pope Liberius, this is like Pope Liberius was 365, 20 years later, how Pope Liberius acted. Eustatius go to him and he said, oh, you were deposed in the East, so now go to the East and, we will do another judgment with the bishops near your province. I will send some legates and we will see that you should be deposed or not. No, Pope Liberius, I give you position back. Go to the East. Show this letter. And he showed it. And this Council of Tiana, because you show it, you are back. And this is like 20 years after the Council of Sardica. So, to sum up, these canons are legitimate canons. It was trying 100 years ago, some scholars, and even nowadays, minority trying to say it's of 5th century, but there is not good evidence on it. Most of the scholars, like 90% scholars, are saying that this is Sardican canons, but they try to interpret this, most of them try to interpret this in a very minimalistic way. But when you see this in the context, how you cannot say that Pope is not the final appellation court. You cannot say it, because Julius did this, Liberius did this, and Council Fathers believe it with Athanasius the Great and do not oppose it. And this is one of the early examples of the primacy of jurisdiction of the Bishop of Rome in doing this kind of authority in the East. Some scholars also are trying to say that, now Pope received authority from the Council, because now Pope, the Council give authority to the Pope to act this. So this is the Iure Humano. His authority is from not God, but it's not the case, because Pope did it 2 years before, and the Sardican Council just accepted, say, yeah, this is what was done, and now we will put this in a canon law, because the previously the popes acted in this way, but we do not have this formalized in some canons. We don't have it. So now Sardica Council, because of the Easter, some semi-Arian heretics does not believe in this authority of the Pope, that Pope can do it. They, in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th canons of this council, they legitimize it. They maybe not legitimize it. They show that they are aware of this. That we will put in the law, but it does not mean that they give Pope's authority. They only recognize his jurisdictional authority, and what kind of authority? When they wrote the letter to Pope Julius at the end of the council, they said that the Rome is the caput ecclesia. The see of Peter, is caput ecclesia, is the head of the church, and every priest, sacerdotes, every priest, it means every bishops. There's a priest in the Latin, but every bishops must go to the head of the church. Why? Because this is the see of Peter. So, when you link this everything, you link this everything twice, you will see that, so jurisdictional authority, because this see of Peter, so this apostolic, this is the authority of Peter. And only later, Leo, Celestine, other popes just said more explicitly that we are the successor of Peter and our authority is jurisdictional. But this was in the 4th and in the 2nd century, and the popes were very aware of it, and even Western and Eastern bishops was aware.
That's a great answer. It's a great response. John Colarafi says that St. Athanasius' Apology 21 to 35 is our source for the letter of Pope St. Julius restoring St. Athanasius.
No, the Athanasius source of the letter of Pope. The Stoic Athanasius. Yeah.
So
Yes, and
out of the mouth of the source himself, Saint Athanasius is the one who says it. So this is a I think this is a big deal because it shows that the popes have jurisdiction. But some folks would say, well, yeah, they have jurisdiction, but it's an appellate jurisdiction, so they have to be appealed to first before they can act on the judgment, whether they restore or not. But I would say it's not just appellate that has to do with reinstatement or restoration of your status as a bishop or patriarch or what have you. But because when Saint Cyril went to Pope Celestine, there was no, hey, I need to be restored question. He's appealing to him to answer a question about a dogma. Like, hey, what should we do? What should we do with this Nestorius guy? He's teaching this. Does he have the right teaching? You tell me. Should I commune with this guy? Right. So it's not just appellate in the sense of I need to be restored, but also in orthodoxy. Hey, which side is right and which side is wrong? Right.
yes, but there is even more. If just we have a little bit, if I could
Sure.
say something
Sure.
about this Nestorian controversy and what you said. There's even more because when anonymous sermons of Bishop of Nestorius reached Rome at the end of 428, it's like something probably December. At the end of this year, so in April 428, after Sisinus, the Bishop or Patriarch of Constantinople, Nestorius was elected. I think it was even 10th of April. And at the end of the year, some anonymous sermons of Nestorius, negating these kind of Theotokos and this strange Christology, reached Rome. And now Pope Celestine writes to Cyril, about this, that the sermons are from Nestorius or what is going on? Give me information. And now Cyril wanna deal with Nestorius on his own term, and when he saw that Nestorius are saying, I not agree with you, and he appealed to Pope, Cyril appealed to Pope, wrote great letter in 430, also in April, and saying that this is the custom of the church. By necessity, I must inform you what is the status of the church. And here saying that I will not break communion with Nestorius. I will not break communion with Nestorius, even if he knew that he should do it. But I will not break publicly communion with Nestorius before you will give what? Greek typosai todokun. Your typos, your decree, your sentence. Typos was, this Greek word was used in the councils, like when the emperor convoked the council, it was typos. Like the council acted authoritatively, give some decision, it was called typos, chalcedon also. So, and when you give your sentence. And now, what is important? Celestine. So we don't have ecumenical council. We don't have some synodal process. Claiming Nestorius to trial on heretic. Now Celestine wrote back 4 letters. 2, Cyril, Nestorius, clergy of Constantinople, and John of Antioch, and other Eastern bishops like Juvenal of Jerusalem, Flavian of Philippi, and of Corinth. And now Celestine gives his judgment. He does not ask he's not saying that, oh, this is my opinion, this is my thought, we should depose Nestorius. I sent you my opinion today, and now please convoke your synods, think about this, and we'll do some. No, he gives his decision. You have 10 days. If you do not reject this on the paper, you will be excommunicated not from my see, from the Universal Church. And he wrote to Cyril, Celestine, and saying that you will execute of my sentence, I will give you authority of our see, of my see, the authority of the Roman see, which I hold as a bishop of Rome. I will give you, and you execute this sentence on Nestorius. So now, please, everybody, think about this. We have the Bishop of Rome who constituted the most important bishop in the East, second in the church, because Alexandria then was second in the church, not Constantinople. Then historically was Alexandria. So Pope Celestine believed that he could constitute as his delegate in the East, as his executor of his sentence, the most important bishop in the East, and he do not act ultra vires. And Cyril believed it, he agreed on it, and he acted. And now, because there could be also a lot of say, but just one thing I will say, and I will shut up. Celestine wrote a letter, and it was also a letter to John of Antioch. But this letter to clergy of Constantinople was very important. To clergy of Constantinople, and he said that I heard that some of your clergy was deposed by Nestorius at Constantinople at the council, and it was the council which was at Constantinople when Nestorius was rightful bishop of Constantinople. So that we don't have any judgment on Nestorius, we don't have any trial. Nestorius have a synod, and he condemned and exiled from the church the clergy, bishops, deacons in his Constantinople, in his territory. And what Celestine did, he wrote that, and now I quote you this I will give you a quote. He said this, quote, "The authority of our see has publicly decreed that no one, whether a bishop or cleric or a Christian of any profession, who has been deprived of either rank or communion by Nestorius or those like him from the time when they began to preach these things, is to considered either deprived or excommunicated," close quote. So see, the authority of our see has publicly decreed that no one is considered either deprived or excommunicated. What it means? It means, by conclusion, Nestorius was not deposed. Nestorius was rightful bishop of Constantinople, and his action at this synod of Constantinople was, from a canonical perspective, rightful. From canonical perspective, it was canonical right. He could do it. And now Celestine are nullifying the canonical deposition of Nestorius in his own patriarchate. He nullifying this, by my authority, I nullify it. You are back in the church, and nobody said that Celestine are doing, ultra vires. What he's doing now? So he acted with in the authority, in the jurisdiction of Nestorius. He acted with papal authority, with his jurisdiction, and nullify the jurisdictional actions of the Patriarch of the East of the Constantinople, and it was recognized as valid. Now this is the last question. What kind of authority could do it if not the jurisdictional authority? Yeah, so without ecumenical councils, synods.
Right, and then that's very powerful stuff, because a lot of the things that you're saying, it contradicts the sentiment of what's often quoted, the Chieti or the Chieti document. The Bishop of Rome did not, practice or hold. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but he basically did not have jurisdiction outside of Rome or of the Western Church. And everything you're saying are examples where he did, right? And that's what we talked about in the beginning of the show. Is it's like, I'm gonna just plug my ears and blindfold my eyes, all the evidence out there, and I'm just going to say something that's more ecumenical, in nature, right? Rather than just speaking what the truth is, right? What is the truth? That's the most important thing. It's not what feels good to talk about. It's not what makes us have a better status in front of each other. It's not how we can shake hands. We can do all that. That's great, but we can't negate truth, right? So all the things that you're talking about are very important.
Yeah, and also just one thing I want to add, and somebody say, "Oh, but the Pope did, of this authority of the Pope did it, Pope did, but oh, this is autocrat without synod." No, the Celestine convoked a synod at Rome on 10th August, 430. They decided together with his brother bishops, and he sent these letters, like to the clergy of Constantinople, and this was on his authority. He did this together with the bishops. So it was not just Pope as autocrat. No, the Pope is working in synodal way with brother bishops, but he's acting on his special authority, which comes from the Peter and this jurisdictional authority. And therefore, even Cyril of Alexandria, when he wrote, because he was the executor of the sentence of Celestine, he received this letter of the 10 days ultimatum from Nestorius, and he wrote a lot of letters to the Eastern bishops, to Juvenal, John of Antioch. And in one of the letters, he wrote that the Council of Rome, decided this, and some Orthodox scholars which I talked, they said, "Oh, you see, Pope, Council of Rome, no Pope decided, Council of Rome," and I'm saying that, oh, wait a second, check the letter to Juvenal of Jerusalem. I think it was to Juvenal Jerusalem of Cyril of Alexandria. He does not mention nothing about the council. He just mentioned about the decree of Pope Celestine. So I would say now, oh, only Pope. No, Pope and the council working together, but the council working on which authority? On the authority of the Pope. So it's no either or, it's together.
Yes, and Father Price in his book on the Lateran Synod 649 actually mentions that, and he says that when they speak of the synod, sometimes they'll speak of the synod itself, or sometimes they'll speak of it in the name of the patriarch. That's the head of the synod. So that's the in this case the Pope. So it's used interchangeably. It's not meant to say the authority doesn't belong to the head. It belongs to the synod. That's not what they're trying to say. And I forgot what page number that was, but
yes, he said. I don't remember too. Maybe I will find it. I remember that Father Price with Thomas Graham, they said this in that the synod. They more emphasize this, that the Synod of Rome are saying on the Pope Celestine.
Yeah,
but
I think I can find it in a few seconds. But are you able to take any question? There's a couple questions only. If you want to, if you don't want to, it's okay.
We could do very fast 10 minutes question, but I just want to give you one quote, if I could, at the end, because you will say, about what I said to you, that Cyril, I told you that Cyril of Alexandria believed that not only Celestine believed all West, but I told you that Cyril of Alexandria believed that Celestine ultimately resolved the case of Nestorius and the faith.
Yep.
He was the ultimate authority. And you will say, aha, you are, who are you, Paul, to say this? Give me some, best scholar, who are recognized professors, and I can give you. There is a wonderful book about Cyril of Alexandria and Nestorian controversy, written by Susan Wessel, great patristic scholar, renowned in the whole world. And I give you a quote from her. I have this quote when I read her work. Just give me a minute, and I want to end with this quote, because it's very powerful, and it's showing that it's not just I try to see something, some papal things because I'm Catholic or papalist. I want to see some things and try to interpret in papal way, by my papal glasses. But I'm doing as best I could the work of a historian and patrologist. So now I will give you this quote from this is the book, recommend highly. Cyril of Alexandria and the Nestorian Controversy, The Making of a Saint and of a Heretic, Susan Vessel. I think it was published in Oxford. And in this book, mm, at the page 142, renowned scholar, great patrologist Susan Vessel said, quote, Celestine probably believed that the Synod of Rome already decided the doctrinal questions, making further debate unnecessary. Cyril undoubtedly held a similar view. And later, at the page 147 and 148, Susan Vessel said that about the first session. She commented the first session of the Council of Ephesus and what Cyril did. And she said, quote, building upon such claims of Roman support, Cyril then suggested that Nestorius had already been justly condemned by a papal decree issued on 10 August 430. And the last sentence from her, in page 174, she said, quote, the papal representatives at the July sessions, Arcadius Projectus and Philip, were in fact charged with carrying out before the council the sentence of deposition that the Pope in Rome had previously decreed. Celestine clearly believed that the Roman See wielded the definitive and final authority in the conciliar process. Close quote. So we see, she said, Celestine believed it, and she said, undoubtedly, Cyril also believed it. So you have the sources, data, and even great scholar. She tries to be as honest as could be. And then she said this. So, think about this. Everybody who hears this, think about this, please.
And that's very powerful stuff. And even like I said, Father Price, and I actually found the quote in his book, the Lateran Acts of the Lateran Synod of 649. It's on page 154. It's footnote number 92. This is what he says. He says, though this, let me see, where is it? He says, there was no real difference between addressing all the bishops directly and doing so via their president. An ambiguity of address is recurrent in the conciliar acts. And right before that, he says, though this peroration is presumably addressed to all the bishops, the Greek honorifics, most blessed and beatitude, were normally reserved for the Pope, and the Greek text could be read as addressed to him alone. So it's not just to, like, even though it's addressed to the Synod, it's also like you can read it as being addressed to the Pope alone, right? And so I think that's very powerful. It's not just in the name of the Synod; it's the head of the Synod that you're addressing it to. So it's the Pope. Yeah. And back to what you were saying, the Pope had the mind of the Church behind him, Pope Celestine, right? He acted in accordance to the mind of the Church, but the sentence itself is authoritative because of the Pope himself acting. So it's in the name of the Roman See. It's not in the name of the whole Church. It's in the name of the See alone, but it's not something that's in contention to the Church. The Church is behind it. So that's important.
Yeah, and therefore the deposition from 22 June, the first session of Council of Ephesus, at the end, it was evening, in the canonical deposition solemn of Nestorius, signed by 198 fathers, what they said, we are by necessity compelled by the letter of Celestine.
Yeah.
They pointed out, you can say, it's synod, yes. Synodal, yes, but not just the synod without Pope's authority, like the a lot of apologists try to say, even the Council urges that we condemn Nestorius because we are, by the necessity, bound to do it by the letter of Pope Celestine.
Yes,
So you
absolutely.
see, yeah.
So you don't have to take too much time. Maybe you can take 30 seconds.
Yeah, very, yeah, actually,
Real
maybe,
quick.
yeah, a few, yes,
Just real quick.
sorry.
Greetings from Poland. A question for later. In your opinion, what is the most challenging historical argument against the papacy and why? By a challenging argument, I don't mean a defeater. You don't have to get into the details, nitty gritty. Just in your opinion, what do you think is the most challenging?
Most challenging. So I would say most challenging is especially the letter of the African church, maybe not African church, but some Africans, because there's not some Africans, minority of Africans, written in the 424 to Pope Celestine. It's Quantoremus. This letter is called Quantoremus, and they very harshly opposed the intervention of popes in the Africa. So I think this is very good argument against the papacy. But I could deal with it, but this is it's very good argument.
Yeah, no, I
To
mean,
be honest.
I know we're after, I think it's after midnight for you, so I want to respect that. So, last one, and this should be really fast. How would you answer someone saying the Eastern Orthodox keeps first millennium ecclesiology, that Hormisdas, Pope Leo, and early councils applied only until Rome fell into heresy, being first in honor, not infallible?
Yeah, maybe could you one more time, because I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
So
I'm a little bit tired.
what they're saying is, what do you say to people that say, Rome could keep all the prerogatives, Pope Leo was right, the whole thing was right, but as long as they're Orthodox, they could keep all those jurisdictional prerogatives. But if they fall into heresy, then they lose all the prerogatives.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What I say, this is a fundamental problem with this kind of argumentation, which was very popular in the Byzantium in the 13th century. The Greeks won't try this use argument, but it's a problem because when we really accept what Leo, Hormisdas, and the popes are saying, what even the Eastern Orthodox are trying to say, this is our ancestors, our fathers, these popes of Orthodox, Leo, or Hormisdas, Grazius, and other popes. We accept this, but if they are Orthodox, if not, we reject them. But in their thinking, in their concept, in their ecclesiology, you must accept them, not because only they are right or wrong, that you judge them, but because of this authority. So they always will have, when they solemnly judged, not in just the mind of the church. So there's you cannot ask, I will accept you if you are Orthodox, but who will decide you are Orthodox?
Yep.
Me? Or my interpretation of the history or ecumenical council? Who am I as a layman or even as a bishop to judge the vicar of Christ, or I would say vicarius Petri, vicar of Peter, whom Christ gave me as my pastor, and he's my father. I, as a son, even the bishops are the brothers of the Bishop of Rome, yes, but they're also in some way the sons of his, like Pope Damasus, when he wrote great letter. We have this letter in Theodoret of Cyrus, the ecclesiastical history of his. He wrote to the Easterners, and he said, "Dear sons," the Eastern Bishop, "Dear sons." So the bishops are also sons of the Father. If I, as a son, rebel against the Father as the head and say, I know better, I will go out of this house and I will build my family. Who am I? I am rebellion. I am not a friend of God. God is not rebellion. He do not like rebel. He do not like chaos. He loves the peace, and he loves the porządek, I have to say it, but the order. So pray, be humble, pray for the Holy Father, for the Church, and be the Church. And the last comment. There is also a great quote from the Ambrose of Milan. He said in the commenting the Psalm 40. This is Psalm 40, verse 30. He said, Ubi Petrus est, ibi ecclesia est. Where is the Peter? There is the church. And you would think, oh, but this is the Ambrose logic, fathers. It's not scriptural logic. No, it's scriptural logic. Because why Ambrose said this word? He said this because Peter was made not by the council, not by the emperor, but Peter was made by Jesus Christ himself as the rock and foundation of his church that will last forever, this church. So this is not only for 1 century, 2 centuries, it lasts forever. So if Peter and his successors are the foundation of the church, so where is the foundation? There is the building. There is no building without the foundation. Like also there is no full building, full foundation without the building. It must work together. So therefore we as Catholics have the Pope, and therefore even the last, I say, Theodore of Studite in the 9th century, in a letter to Pope Leo III in circa 809 year, when he was exiled to the island with his brother Joseph and uncle Plato. Joseph was Archbishop of Thessaloniki. They were exiled because of the controversy with the emperor. This Moechian controversy is called. And he wrote a letter to the Pope, and he called him, you know what? How he called him? You are the rock of the church. Not that Peter is the rock. You are the rock of the church. Now there is still going the Church of Jesus Christ, and like in the 1st century, we have the Peter as the rock, and we follow him. You are the head of the church. So the same in 9th century by Theodore Studite, Eastern monk, very important, prominent figure in the East, wrote to the Pope and applied the biblical language and saying, you are head of the church. We ask you.
I think you froze there, Powell. I don't know if that's just for me. Or maybe did I freeze too? Or can you guys still hear me? Let me see if he's going to come back here. Can you guys still hear me? If you guys can hit 1, if you can still hear me. All right. Looks like we got some trolls over here. Let's get this guy out of here. All right. Let's see. Okay, so you guys can still hear me. Well, I don't know if he's coming back or not. But that was an incredible show from Brother Powell. We shared a lot of evidence from the first millennium of a Vatican I type of ecclesiology. I know it's late for him, and we were only supposed to go an hour and a half. We've gone over 2 hours, so he was gracious enough to go over the time. I am going to ask him to come back on another time as well, because he's full of information. He has a book on this topic. He knows what he's talking about. He is a patristic scholar. He's a PhD student. I think this guy has a very, very bright future ahead of him in this field. So I do want to thank everybody for tuning in, for watching, and please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification, all that stuff. I'm trying to get this information out to as many people as I can. So that's the way to support me, is just to share this content if you could. In any case, you guys have a wonderful day, wonderful night wherever you are, and God bless you.